future is so bright.
Wow. This is so amazing. One, we are so honored to be here with you all today. I didn't know if I should curtsy or what when I saw you. I was like, the Queen is here! The Queen is here! We're so honored to have you. You all have been turning up. I've been hearing you all day. It's been amazing to hear you all, so thank you so much for the energy. And we're going to get into this conversation because one, this is a monumentous occasion. I know you've been touring, I know you've been out here really supporting the colleges. So as Vice President, you traveled this country to meet with Americans that matter the most, the issues that matter to them the most. And this summer you visited 17 states, so you've been on the road. And you have met with young leaders wherever you go, from climate change leaders in Colorado to gun safety in Virginia. And now you've launched a college tour where you will travel to more than a dozen college campuses, including today at Morehouse. And HBCUs are representing. I know Morehouse is in here, I know Spelman's in here, I know it's beautiful. I know you're here to speak to the young leaders about our fight for our most fundamental freedoms, because we are in the middle of this fight. So why is it so important for you to go to college campuses for this fight for our freedoms tour?
Well, let me just start by saying thank you to all of the leaders, the young leaders who are here. You all would not be here if you were not and had not decided at this stage, this early stage in your life, to lead. And so I, first and foremost, want to be here to say thank you, because your generation is, I think, a very special one. You all have experienced so much already. Whether it be that in your entire life you've only known a climate crisis. Many of you are trying to figure out how to graduate high school or enter college during the midst of a pandemic. You are a generation that, unlike previous generations, grew up with active shooter drills. Your generation witnessed the crime against George Floyd. You all are not willing to sit passively by. You are not waiting for others to take control of what needs to be solved. You all have stepped up and decided you will be part of making it happen and helping people understand what you need. And so I'm here to first and foremost thank you, because what I want for you is that you will be able to live your best life. That's what I want for you. And so I decided to embark on this college tour, to be here where you are, to share some of my thoughts in terms of what I see happening in our country and by extension the world, but also to hear from you. Because as you mentioned in terms of the elections, one of the ways that you are also going to make a difference in our country and this world is to vote. And so I'm also here to remind you of the power of your vote, the importance of registering to vote, and then voting as one of the ways that you will make a difference in our country, in our communities, and to the future of the world. So those are the many reasons that I'm on this tour, that is about saying we all are in this fight, and this fundamental fight for our freedoms. This is not a time to sit passively by while there is what I believe a full-on intentional attack against hard-won, hard-fought freedoms and rights. And so I'm here to work with you and to say thank you for all that you are doing as the leaders in our country who are going to make the difference.
Raise your hand if you're already registered to vote. Yes! Amazing! Now who in here is going to register if you're not already registered? Okay, that's all right. I like your attitude. Absolutely get ready to get registered to vote. This is going to be serious at the local level and, of course, the election year next year. Now, we have student questions because, of course, we want to make sure that our students are involved. We have R.J. Jackson, student That's RJ. Now, RJ asked, how can HBCU students continue the legacy of protecting voting rights for the people of our community?
First of all, look, we all know, especially those of us who attend or have attended an HBCU, that we stand on very broad shoulders of the leaders who came before us and fought and died for our right to vote. So we start with that, understanding that there was blood that was sacrificed for the right to vote, and we cannot let that be in vain. We also know that we are taught at HBCUs, we are taught within our communities and families, that history is kind of a relay race. And those upon whose shoulders we stand, they did what they could do when they were carrying the baton, and then they handed it to us. And the question will be, what do we do while we are carrying the baton for our part of the race? And one of those things that we must do is exercise our power and not let it be suppressed or silenced in any way, including with our right to vote. I say that understanding the state that I am in, the state of Georgia, where there have been laws passed that are intentionally trying to make it more difficult for you to vote. Laws that say, which is just, for the folks who we honor as the heroes of the various movements, for them to think that in this year of our Lord, 2023, that here in the state of Georgia, the heart of the civil rights movement, that there would be a law that was passed that would make it illegal to give people food and water while they stand in line to exercise their civic right. And the hypocrisy abounds. Because whatever happened to love thy neighbor? Your school ID will not qualify as ID to vote. Who here goes to a private college? You see what I'm saying? There are people who are intentionally trying to make it more difficult for you to vote. There are others who are suggesting that your vote doesn't matter or it won't count. And I'm saying that we can never let the powerful forces that have always existed that try to silence us, we cannot let them win. And I will further add that there is empirical evidence of the fact that when you vote, it matters. So in 2020, in the height of a pandemic, we had record young voter turnout, and it is because of that turnout that Joe Biden was elected President of the United States and I was elected the first Black woman. Because you voted. And our young leader said, we know that our HBCUs are centers of academic excellence, but have for too long been underfunded. And because you voted and we were able to get in office together with Cedric Richmond, we have now invested over $7 billion in our HBCUs. Because you voted and said too many of our communities around the country, our babies are drinking toxic water out of lead pipes, and those lead pipes need to be removed, and the grandmothers and grandfathers have been talking about it for generations. And because you voted, we are now in the process of removing all the lead pipes in our country. Because you voted and said our HBCU students are 70% of the population are Pell Grant eligible, and you need to increase Pell Grants, we've been able to do that because you voted. Because you voted. student loan debt is slowing down my ability to pursue a career that I might want for the sake of a career that pays enough so I can pay off that debt, even though that's not my passion. You said student loan debt is slowing down my ability to be able to have a family or buy a home. We came in office and then forgave student loan debt of up to $20,000 for Pell recipients. And here's the thing. There are a whole bunch of people who didn't want us to have that happen and have stood in the way of allowing that to follow through. We have to keep voting to push through these policies that we know will actually have an impact on real people's lives. And Cedric, if you want to add anything to that in terms of some of this work and why voting really did matter and will matter.
Well, the best example is why voting matters is because you have Vice President Harris. Some people have heard her. Some people say Madam Vice President. But around the White House, we call it the MVP. But the fact that you have a Vice President that left the White House to come to the House to talk to you all is the biggest example of why your vote matters. So, Madam VP, we're both HBCU graduates, Morehouse here, Howard there.
Thank you.
There's always one. And you are gracing us with your presence here on the campus of Morehouse, joined by the student leaders of Spelman, Clark Atlanta, and Morris Brown, and all institutions that have played a big role in shaping the history of this country, especially Black history. And as you and the President say all the time, Black history is American history. So, when you look at and see the efforts to control, erase, and not teach the full history of this country, what do you think about that issue? What do you think about this moment in time?
So what I say, the full sentence that I say is, Black history is America's history, period. It's not a debatable point. And again, this Fight for Our Freedoms tour is because we really are in a fight, including the fight for the freedom to be taught America's full history. And again, book bans in this year of our Lord 2023, where there are people who walk around with their fancy flag pins and they want to be leaders of our country and the world, and they dare to tell us that enslaved people benefited from slavery? They gaslight us as they try to insult us. And be clear. Part of what's at play also is they are trying to distract us. They are trying to distract us with undebatable points. That's not a debate. We're not debating that. But they're trying to distract us. They're trying to divide our country. Understand what's going on. There is a plan afoot to distract from the fact that this very same ones who try to erase America's history don't have a plan for America's future. They try to divide us, to suggest that we are all different so we don't build coalition, which history has always taught us is one of the most important ingredients in any movement in our country that has been about progress. They try to distract us and divide us. We cannot let that happen. You look at what's happening with what they're doing around For example, in Florida, the Don't Say Gay bill. Now, I proudly performed some of the first same-sex marriages in our country in 2004. So next year, I'm dating myself. Next year, that's going to be 20 years from now. Next year. I'm looking at the young teachers in Florida who are in their 20s, who may be in a same-sex relationship, who are afraid to put up a photograph of their family for fear they may be fired. That's what's happening in our country. What's happening in our country is a full-on attack against people's rights and the freedom to be. The freedom to be. And I want to say to the young leaders here, it doesn't have to be this way. Do know that. It does not have to be this way. And the way that we change it is by ensuring that we stand up and we are vocal, we are organized, and we fight for our freedoms and protect our freedoms. But what's happening in our country right now, with those who are spewing hate so openly and unapologetically, there's, the story about the two frogs and the 2 pots of water? Okay, so here goes. Two frogs and 2 pots of water. So, in one pot, the water's there, and you put the frog in the water, and you slowly turn up the heat. And that frog's been hanging out like, oh, it's getting a little warm in here. The next thing you know, that water's boiling, that frog perishes. The other pot of water, you first turn up the heat to boiling, then you drop the frog in it. That frog jumps out. Let's not be that first frog. See what's happening? That's such an important analogy, and I think we understand that for sure. Now we're going to make sure we continue with our student questions. And RJ, I saw you standing the whole time, so I'm going to make sure you get to say hello on the mic, because we do have a mic now. Can I get Harry Singleton Jr.?
Madam Vice President, in light of recent legal challenges to reproductive rights, what strategies do you believe are essential for the protections provided by Roe v. Wade? And how can we promote a more inclusive and comprehensive approach to reproductive justice?
And I just want to point out an obvious point. That question was raised at Morehouse College.
Yeah.
So, as I said earlier, for your generation, in your lifetime, you have witnessed the highest court in our land, the Court of Third, take a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America. You all are going to know less constitutional rights than your mother or your grandmother. And after that decision, the Dobbs decision came down, it's been just a little over a year now. In our country, in states across our country, they started proposing and passing laws to criminalize healthcare providers, to punish women, to make no exception even for rape or incest. And now everyone is grown here, so I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, because understand on this issue, this is not just about some intellectual academic debate. Since that decision came down, there are people in our country every day who are silently suffering. Now, many of you know, Makai mentioned that I started as a prosecutor. One of the reasons that I decided to become a prosecutor is because when I was in high school, my best friend, I learned, was being molested by her stepfather. And I said to her, you have to come live with us. I called my mother and I said, yes, she has to come live with us, and she did. And I specialize then in cases of violence against women and children. So the idea that these so-called leaders who are extremists will pass laws with even no exception for rape or incest, what that means is they are saying to a survivor of a crime of violence, a violation to their body, that they don't have the right to decide what happens to their body next. That's immoral. That's immoral. And here's the thing on this subject. One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling her what to do with her body. The government is not in a better position than she is to know what is in her own best interest. If she chooses, she will consult her priest, her pastor, her rabbi. But how dare these people in state capitals decide they're in a better position than she is to decide what's in her own best interest? And so on this subject, again, elections matter. Because here's the thing, if we have members of the United States Congress who agree to that point, which is that the government should not be telling somebody, that's up to them and their God and their choice. If we have enough people in the United States Congress who agree, Joe Biden has said he will sign into law, putting back in the protections of Roe v. Wade. And here's the other thing, because we are in Atlanta that I want to mention on this subject. Do you know, and I want to also congratulate the Medical Morehouse Medical School of Medicine for what you did on maternal mortality, on Black maternal mortality. We've been working together on this. Because here's the thing. So do you know that, first of all, when we're looking at an issue like Black maternal mortality, which is that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth than other women. And it has nothing to do with her socioeconomic status or her educational status. It literally has to do with the fact that when she walks into that clinic or that hospital or that emergency room, she is not taking it seriously. Okay? Black maternal mortality. The top 10 states with maternal mortality, almost every one of them also has an abortion ban. So the hypocrisy again abounds because these people who are pushing these bans dare to tell us, well, this is for the sake of women and their children. Well, then why have you been silent on maternal mortality? Right? So it's important to see the connection between all of these issues, but again, elections matter, and every day in our country is having an impact on real people, and especially here in the South, where, you know, a working person, usually most people who seek abortion care have children. The majority do. So that means she's got to figure out if she's got sick leave that's paid, if she's got affordable child care, which she probably doesn't, if she's got extra money for bus, plane fare, how to go to a state where she can actually do what she feels is in her best interest. How's she going to be able to do that? Why are we making people suffer like that? And so this is yet another example of what's happening. And you know, so one of the things that you all learned, and I just love, I'm going to just confess that I'm a geek on some things. I love Venn diagrams. I do.
What is going on right now?
I do. You know those 3 circles sometimes you do. I think Venn diagrams are so helpful when you're trying to discern what's going on, especially in this conference. So I asked my team, I said, let's drop a Venn diagram. From which states are we seeing attacks on reproductive health care, attacks on voting rights, and attacks on LGBTQ rights? You would not be surprised to see an incredible overlap. See what's happening. See what's happening, but this is also then back to my point about the opportunity for coalition building. Let's bring everybody together to fight for our freedoms, to fight for fundamental freedoms, to be
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I'll just pick up where you left off in terms of coalition building and youth fighting. And I know that during the midterms you traveled all over the country to educate and energize and fight for freedom to control your own body. But the other thing that you've traditionally fought for from your early years as a prosecutor was fighting for climate action and fighting for environmental justice. In fact, when you were a prosecutor, you were the first in the nation to create an environmental justice unit. And so if we just look at what's happening around the world, and we can start with Katrina, which I survived in New Orleans, we don't really celebrate that, but I just want you to know that. But you can also look just a little while ago at the enormous rainfall in Georgia and the flooding at Clark Atlanta University. And so the question becomes about climate and our environment and rallying the country together so that we leave the planet better than we found it, or at least leave the planet in a sustainable way.